episode of Quilt with the Stars is brought to you by Baby Lock for the love of sewing, P&B Fabrics, our fabrics, your lifestyle, and Koala Cabinets, sewing furniture custom built in America. Hi, you're watching Quilt with the Stars, and I'm here with Nancy Mahoney, and we've had a great time today talking about some quilts that she's made, some projects that she's been working on, and we did a demo too, and now it's trunk show time. And Nancy, you brought your camera.
I did, Mary, because I wanted you to see my studio.
I want to see your studio. I'm dying to see it, actually, so let's check it out.
Well, I have this great wall that I can use as my design wall, and it's about 8 feet tall and like 96 inches long. I have a really nice size room that I can use that. And then I have a nice cutting station. I set up 3 different stations. One is my cutting station, and that's a kitchen table, a kitchen island.
Yeah, it's the one here on the right, and that's a kitchen. You got
it like kitchen island.
Cool.
And it's 36 inches tall, so it's a nice height for me to cut. And I can put all of my cutting there with my big mat, and I don't have to move things then as I want to cut and iron.
And what about
then this is my ironing station.
That bit with the drawers and everything.
I got 2 Chester drawers that were 36 inches tall, and then I put a big board on top of that and covered it.
I didn't notice that. When I first looked at the picture, I thought it was a kind of a dresser thing that maybe you had put ironing, a pad, and felt, and all that kind of stuff on top. But no,
I built it, really.
You built it. That is awesome.
So that it's wide enough that it would be 36 inches wide. It would hold my big mat if I wanted it to. And it's about 80 inches long. So I can iron a big quilt on it and iron big pieces of fabric on it.
That is half my problem sometimes. I mean, when I'm pressing a large quilt, it's like, how do I manhandle this thing? But that's brilliant.
So here's another shot of my cutting area. And you can see where then I have my sewing area in front of the window, so I can look out at my backyard and at my garden and see the hummingbirds coming to the window.
I love that nice yellow you got on the walls too. It's super
fun?
Cheery, but it's neutral, so it's not going to skew any of your design work.
And I invested in a quilting machine not too long ago, so I'm able to do all my own machine quilting on a bigger machine now.
Are you enjoying it?
I love it.
Cool.
I really love it.
My mom's getting into it too. She works. She does a few projects every once in a while, and I've tried long arming, machine quilting on a small machine, but then also long arming. It takes time to develop those skills.
Well, because I've done a lot of free motion quilting, I got the APQS George, which you sit down to sew.
Right.
And so you have the benefit of a long arm machine, but you move your quilt just like you would if you were sewing on your regular sewing machine.
I love APQS. They're smart.
They are.
Smart
They're
folks.
very smart. So here it is, just a couple more shots of my workstations with my wall, and I also use my computer in the same room. So my ironing table or my sewing table is a library table, an antique library table, and I can always set my laptop up next to it and design my quilt on my laptop.
And
then have it right there and print out my pattern. And
quilters are some tech-savvy people. I mean, there's so much of a community online, and I mean, we're online right now.
That's right. That's right.
It's beautiful. And there's the fan dance quilt.
There's the fan dance quilt on the design wall.
Well, let's take a look at some more of these quilts that you're making in this workshop.
Okay.
In this studio. The first one here, I love this fabric, this P&B fabric, Spring Street, right?
Yes,
is that the
this
line?
is Spring Street.
Tell me about this one.
Well, this quilt is called Roundabout, and this is in the Fons and Porter's Scrappy, Easy Scrappy Quilts that is on newsstands. And I wanted to do something that had circles in it. So this is a 2-block quilt. So this is one block here that is just a piece, regular piece block.
Great.
And then this block here is string pieced, and then I did the applique, the arcs on it, using the same technique I used for the fan dance quilt.
Oh, really?
And then I finished it off with the piano keyboard.
Sure, and it showcases all of these whimsical, bright fabrics. I mean, what's cool about this quilt, there's a lot of things I love about it, but it could be a kid's quilt.
It could be.
Or for anybody, and it could be boy, girl, whatever. I mean, that's right, everybody loves this.
And it's kind of controlled scrappy, so it has a limited number of fabrics in it, which makes it a little bit easier than having to try and pick a bunch of different fabrics, which can be challenging.
And it takes longer. If you're using just a few, it goes faster. Cool,
Definitely.
I love it. I love white in quilts, I have to say.
Isn't that fun?
It's my favorite.
So different style. I told you I was an eclectic kind of quilter.
This is like by a different person, almost.
This is using P&B's group called Beloved Beauties.
Gorgeous.
And this is in Love of Quilting, December, January.
2011?
So.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. And it uses the applique block. It again is a 2-block quilt, and this is a fusible applique technique. But instead of doing like a blanket stitch or a zigzag stitch, I just did a straight stitch around the edges with the sulky 60 weight polylight thread, just so that it would be a little bit more of a sophisticated look.
Absolutely, and it raises that design up just a little bit to really showcase it. It's beautiful. This is just that rose color with the green. It's just lovely.
It's a Christmas quilt, but it's not really Christmassy.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Oh, I want to see the next one. It's like moving along to see all of them in the time that we have. This is so cool. This looks like denim. I mean, surely that's kind of the point, right?
The point, yes. This is one of P&B's new groups called Expressions 2. Expressions 1 was all neutrals, and so they brought out in a second group that was done in all the denims. It's a really fun quilt. We wanted to do something that was a little bit more contemporary, and you can kind of tell I like working with circles.
You do like the circles.
So,
I'm seeing a pattern emerge a little bit.
So again, I just did, it's 2 blocks, but I did 2 different blocks that were appliqued, and then I just put a plain square in between.
And you know, this is one of those lessons in contrast. I mean, these fabrics are low contrast with each other, but the patterns are different enough that you see these shapes emerge, but it's really kind of a wash of denim. Oh, it's
definitely, and I really had to play the light and dark against each other so that you could see the design. And I also did a piece border in here so that my borders are asymmetrical.
Oh, that's right. You know, I didn't notice that right away, but this is just the solid pieces, and then
this is again in the opposite corner.
Oh, tricky. Very clever, Nancy Mahoney. Very clever.
It just is a fun thing that you can do to add a little punch to your quilts.
Absolutely. I love it. It's like, it's like blue jeans. Very cool.
Very fun.
Okay.
Now this is called
I promise not to look at the quilts before now, so I'm seeing them with you for the first time.
Flowering Star from the new fabric collection.
Yeah, the one we saw.
Yes, the new fabric collection.
We've come full circle, you see. The little pebbles, they look like little pebbles there, and then the flowers together. It's almost like, it's a garden, flowering garden, right?
It is.
Cool.
It is. And this quilt, as well as the blue quilt, are free patterns that you can download off of the P&B website.
Great, great. We'll get the website up there. And then, so you, all these quilts that you've shown us, you've designed them?
I've designed them,
made them,
made them and quilted them.
You're like, it's a one-woman show. I mean, I aspire to be doing these things. I have to say I'm kind of a topper right now. I am doing design, but I want to do a quilt from start to finish, you know, just like this.
Well, I'm usually on a schedule, and it means I have to finish a quilt by a
when
deadline.
When do you sleep?
I sleep well. I'm tired at the end of the day.
She's exhausted right now, actually. Okay, we've got 2 more quilts to show.
Yes. Well, I couldn't come without showing you one of my 30s quilts. And this is a little applique quilt that I did using actually the same technique I showed today with the starch. I turned the edges and did machine applique with the invisible thread.
It's darling. I mean,
Yeah, and this is one of my fabric lines.
It may be my favorite. This is one of your 30s
fabric lines.
Is this in one of the books, the 30s?
No, this is one I made for me.
Oh, good.
Can you believe it?
I'm glad to hear it because you're doing all this stuff for other people. I'm really happy to hear that you did one for yourself.
It may be in a book eventually. But
probably will be, knowing you.
But right now, I just get to enjoy it.
Well, your circle, where did you get the size? Did you just kind of figure it out? Do you have one of those circle tools?
I use it. You know, you have all kinds of drafting tools that you can get at the office place. Well, they have circle makers. And so I just used the circle maker, made a plastic template out of the heat-resistant template material, and just made my circles.
It's darling. The pink is like bubblegum, perfect pink. And we have one more quilt to show. We actually hung it up on the wall. Tell me about this guy.
Well, this one is called Modern Maze. And this is using P&B's new collection called Downtown. And so I named it because it's a maze of streets in the downtown area because of the colors, as well as the maze that you get when you put the blocks together. And it's the same block, it's just the way that it's turned that you get this interlocking design.
It's incredible. One of the things I like about this is how the border fabric is repeated, or vice versa. Those inner squares are repeated in the border. It's the same fabric, and I just think it creates this depth that is wild. And I live in downtown Chicago, so I'm a big fan of the whole concept of this quilt, this downtown maze. It is kind of like a maze sometimes.
It is.
Especially if you've been in Chicago, Lower Wacker Drive, it's a maze.
Yeah.
You'll know what I mean if you've been there. And the back of the quilt, we may not be able to see it. We may be able to, but it's like a building.
It's a building material, and that's where the name from downtown comes from for the collection, is that it's a couple of the pieces have buildings in them.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Thank you, Nancy Mahoney. I mean, I've learned stuff, and I thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your studio, talking about the quilts you make. We're a community of quilters, and we learn from each other, and it's just really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Mary. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. And
Cool.
We are a community.
We are. Let's stick together. Bye. This episode of Quilt with the Stars is brought to you by Baby Lock, for the love of sewing, P&B Fabrics, our fabrics, your lifestyle, and Koala Cabinets, sewing furniture custom built in America.